This is our first panel actually this year, and we're kicking it off with the pitch panel with like the most fabulous group of panelists I think we've ever had in the 3 years we've been doing this. So I'm going to talk very, very little. We are celebrating our Fast Track fellas tonight. They're both ladies. This is the first time we've had 2 women, which is very cool and exciting. And they're midway through their week right now, and they're going to pitch for us tonight, which is awesome. And if you want to come up and just say a couple quick words about how your week is going, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm Davy Snidely. I have a feature that has given me this amazing opportunity, and I can honestly say, as somebody who used to live in Los Angeles, in the last couple of days, and we still have a couple more, I've had more education, more opportunities, more optimism and excitement and productivity than I did in whole years that I lived here. And now I live in Cleveland. So I am a very big fan of the ISA, and this Fast Track is a wonderful opportunity. Whether you live here or not, I would highly recommend it if you're looking to get that extra support with your writing.
A complete other perspective. My name is Sienna. I live in Olympia, Washington. I am entirely new to this industry and mostly new to LA. And the Fast Track Fellowship, the people of Fast Track Fellowship have been amazing and couldn't be more supportive and have taken care of every need, and that's good because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing and I'm out of my element, so that has been really wonderful. The level of education, yes, that I'm receiving, I'm on a steeper learning curve because Davey has been in this world for a long time, but still they're making it incredibly comfortable and doing everything they can. I cannot say enough good things about them, Jerem and Felicity especially.
This is Max. He's our Director of Education. He runs all of our panels, goes elsewhere to do panels and sit on panels. He has a craft course online. He founded the Story Farm. If you're in need of a writing coach, he's amazing. And also does the Wine Wednesdays Facebook Live broadcast with Felicity. So tonight, there isn't one. But next Wednesday, there is, 7 o'clock on our Facebook page. Okay, I'm going to hand it off.
Thank you to Molly. She is the mastermind behind this, and she pretty much said everything that I was going to say just to start us off. So I guess we can try to jump right back in, but I do want to comment on what the 2 fellows said. Another congratulations to both of them. It's a big week for them. The focus on education, I think, is key, and it's so great that you both mentioned that because because that's, I would say, half or more than half of what the Fast Track Week is, but it's also a lot of what the ISA has turned into over the past few years, and it's one of the reasons why we've been putting these panels on. Education is, I think, one of the most important elements that any writer can focus on, because if you're not improving, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. So obviously everybody here knows that because you're here to be ready to listen to what these amazing people have to say. What I'm going to do is, just because we have a pretty tight schedule, I'm going to read some short, trimmed bios, the bios where everybody could go much longer. Cami down there. Co-wrote Blue Valentine and has written on TV shows for AMC, ABC, Amazon, and NBC. She's currently working on a feature with Gary Sanchez in Amazon Studios and likes to juggle between film and TV. She recently moved to Los Angeles from New York and likes the weather but hates the traffic, which I think we can all agree with. Matt D. Recently joined Adam Kohlbrenner's newly formed Lit Entertainment Group as literary manager. Previously, he worked at Austin Film Festival since 2008, where he served as the director of script competitions, which I'm assuming a lot of people in this room submitted either today or will be later tonight. Facilitated the evaluation of thousands of annual script submissions, reaching a record of 10,580 submissions in 2018, which will probably be even more this year, which is pretty impressive. Diane Burroughs on the far end, an executive producer, sitcom writer with over 30 years of experience. She's a successful showrunner, executive producer of the series Still Standing, which ran on CBS for 4 years. She was the co-executive producer on both Yes Dear, The Drew Carey Show, and many others. Her company, Pitch to Me, which technically Diane could probably run this panel even better than I could, is aimed at helping writers succeed at the art of pitch in its many facets. So welcome, Dan. And finally, Courtney Wilson, to my left, I'm getting this correct this time. Writer, director, and Emmy-nominated producer. As a producer at Jill Soloway's Topple Production, she was behind Golden Globe and Emmy-winning Amazon original series Transparent and I Love Dick. Wilson also helped produce the Emmy-nominated doc-series This Is Me for Amazon Prime. She's currently in development for her directorial debut and has most recently been hired as director of production at Girl Gaze, Inc. Congratulations. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. Among all four, the breadth of education that you will receive is, well, priceless. So I hope you all have your notepads out. So this is going to be fun. All right, so we're going to start with the basics. This is a question that is sometimes overlooked, and I think it's good to just kind of take a bird's eye view, a step back, really look at what the purpose of a pitch is. Because there are so many different ways and reasons to pitch, either verbal or nonverbal, different situations. So in a general sense, and we can riff off of this obviously, what is the purpose of a pitch? I'll start with Courtney.
Ultimately, to present your story to a bunch of people who don't understand what you see and what you want to tell. And ultimately, convince everybody in the room how important it is for that story to be told. At least in my opinion.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, from my perspective and from my experience, it's to get a sense of like why should we even read the script. And a lot of times it's also to understand the story behind the story, because oftentimes that's sometimes even more compelling than the actual story itself. And that's usually enough for me to want to read it if it hits an emotional chord.
Great.
I think it's answering kind of two questions, why this story and why are you telling it? So if I'm pitching, why am I telling this story? Wait, I just lost my train of thought. But it's there.
It's in there.
It's like why the story and why are you telling it? So why the story, kind of like how it could kind of like touch an audience, like how an audience might react to it. And then why are you telling this story? What's your personal connection to the story? I think that those are two important things to get across on a pitch, because then it completely melds you to your story. And it doesn't become a story that just anybody can tell. It's like yours.
As far as television goes, I like to see, is it something that's not currently on the air? And is it also something that's so unique to you and your personal experience that I know there could be 100 episodes that you could be involved in, that it's not just a pilot, that it's a series, it's the world of a show that everyone could relate to, that has a fresh voice, that is, of course, also funny.
So yeah, what I love is that no one really mentioned to tell a story, like literally, in that sense. And I think a lot of writers tend to think, oh, I need to make sure they understand what the story is. Of course, it's part of it, but it's the backbone of the pitch being why. Why am I interested in this? Because so often, well, everyone on this panel, I'm sure, have heard thousands of pitches in various forms. After a while, it's exhausting. You just don't want to listen anymore. But the ones that really stand out are the ones that are like, oh my God, okay, cool. So where story is concerned, we'll talk about that. You know, how do you address telling the story without rambling on and on, which I hope some of our six pitch writers tonight do not do. But we'll start with you.
I guess ultimately every story has been told, for centuries even, and there's something really powerful when somebody who comes into the room can realize that no one else can tell it the way that you can. And that's kind of how you set yourself apart. It's personalized, or something about it resonates with you in a different way, or it's a new perspective on something that we've already seen many times.
What was the question again?
Where story is concerned, how do you approach a pitch without just running right into, here's the story about? What is the best way to get into the storytelling portion of the pitch?
Well, for me personally, I've never had to pitch my own personal stories because I'm on the receiving end. So often the pitches that I've heard that I feel that do the best job of setting up setting up the pitch and giving a good picture of this world is that I'm drawn in immediately. Like, what are the most important elements of the story that I need to get immediately, right away?
Diane, again, a general question, but what do you think is the primary difference between pitching for TV and pitching for features? And we'll go down the line.
Well, the primary difference is there going to be 100 episodes in the world of the show. You know, it's not a beginning, middle, and end, and that's the end of it. You know, we have to continue on week after week and hopefully season after season. And so many times in a pitch such as that, you'll get the question, how are you going to grow the show? Because that's really in a pitch what the executives want to know. Not that it's just a great pilot, but that it's a great series.
Great. Good.
Features tend, you get to kind of dig into the emotions a little bit more, I think, with features. I think you get to really kind of explore your emotional connection to the material and get a little gooey, as opposed to television, which feels to me a little bit more of selling the brand, selling the vehicle. I mean, and yes, I do character-driven indie movies to a certain extent, so that's where I get to kind of like, you know, prance around and cry, if I can.
Did you cry in the pitch?
I have drawn funny pictures in the margin of my pitch to stop myself from crying. I'd rather not cry, but I'd rather show that I could cry, but I'm holding it back. It's just really like stings them.
Keep going. That's right. Is there more?
No, I just think that film allows us to kind of delve into a little bit of like our gooey centers a little bit more, and TV is a little bit more of like I'm going to show you the seasons.
I don't want to know more about what you mean by gooey center, because it's such a great term, but, you know.
The things that like turn you on and make you cry and feel like that they're at the core of you. You know, you give a little bit more emotions, I think, for features. I do. That's
I believe you. No, and it's true that for, obviously depending on genre, but then again, I think what you're referencing primarily on a broad stroke level is character development.
Sure. I mean, you're selling yourself essentially at a pitch, and feature writers do have the luxury of being a little bit more tortured, a little bit more. I write by myself in my room. I'm lonely and I'm deep. You know, whereas TV, it's like you're selling that you could work awesome with a group and run a show and employ 200 people. You get to be more weird for features.
That's true. Matt, go ahead.
I mean, I concur with Cami. Like in the world of features, there's so much room to play, but with pitching for TV, there's a lot of different things that you have to be thinking about when you're pitching for a pilot.
Advertisers, networks.
Yeah, you have to figure out, is this a procedural? What network is this on? Is this basic cable? Is it premium cable? And that's all, you should be able to sort of get the sense of that in the pitch from the story. You don't necessarily have to explain like this is an ABC show, or if there's like raunchy sex and violence in it, you already kind of know it's premium cable or, you know, or basic cable like FX maybe. But you kind of have to come prepared to know what network this would land on. And because this is an oversaturated market with so much content on television, you have to really pinpoint what makes this different, because people are going to be quick to say, what makes this different from that show? Because you almost have to do your homework and know what's out there. And really understand, because it's staffing season right now, I really need to know what pilots are being put out right now and what current series are out.
When you're working with your writers in a live manager role, do you coach them with and on the projects if they're going to go out and take meetings and staffing, et cetera? What do you tell them?
So I am a baby manager who just started in early February. And so what I was just telling Cami here is that, like, because I'm new, I feel like this unicorn amongst managers, because I came from the world of festivals and competitions, and I didn't work my way up from being an assistant at a management company So I come into this purely just, and I used to write as well, so I come into this understanding the psyche of a writer and working with writers and understanding all of their frustrations. And being on this side of it, I completely understand why. And so I'm just trying to fully embrace being me and different. And so in terms of staffing, I am just now delving into that. I just signed a client actually. He had a meeting this morning with Sunnyside, the new Cal Penn show on NBC. So I'm just now learning about that. And so yes, in terms of like prepping them about it, I'm learning from my colleagues at the same time. He just came from the NBC on the Verge program. And so working with the NBC folk and also with my colleagues, it's like the best prep in terms of learning how staffing really is working. So yeah, there is like coaching them and having them make sure they obviously read the pilot, that they did their homework and know who the showrunners and EPs are, so they can talk about why they want to be on the show, what they can bring to this that no other staff writer could.
Yeah, I think that would be, obviously, we'll get into your answer too, but I think that might be one of the more important differences in terms of what do I bring to the show, as opposed to here's my pitch for an original pilot or something. And I'm sure Diane has a lot to add to that too. But so difference in your experience between pitching for TV, pitching for features.
I feel like features get to be more of a controlled set piece. In this way, they get to kind of just exist in a small world that you get to create, and ultimately, you don't have to think about what's going to happen after the world is done, or maybe you want to make another one because everybody loves remakes these days. But you know, you have more control. And then I think when it comes to television, especially when you're pitching your pilot, it's like finding that magical formula that's going to allow you to have these characters that are never going to run out of things to do with each other. What are their flaws? What makes one tick versus the other one? How do you pin them against each other? What circumstance is your world in order that you can continue to make these patterns happen over and over and over again? And if anything, the more information you reveal about each one as the circumstances change, it makes it better and better.
And when you hear a writer talk about a project, we'll say an original pilot for now, that has that quick to understand hook situation with characters that can drive more situations, it just clicks. You just immediately like, yeah, I can see that. So I love that you brought up the character flaw approach and then how that works within the situation that you're trying to pitch. You're technically pitching an ongoing situation, not necessarily just a pilot. But Diane, how do you coach your students, clients, and when it comes to, okay, we have this pitch, here is what we need to fix, how and why? Obviously, that's such a broad question, but maybe something specific, like an example that you can come up with recently.
Well, if it's a pitch for a series, I mean, there is somewhat of a formula to it. I mean, you have to have a really strong log line that they can grab onto right away. Because in television, there's layers and layers of people that this has to be run up the chain. And so the people you are pitching to will probably be pitching it to their boss, who will pitch it to their boss, and on and on. And so you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're pitching. Is this clear? If it's not me saying it to the person buying the show, how is this executive going to be able to interpret exactly what I want them to interpret to run this up the ladder? And so it has to be simple and clear and unique enough that even someone that's not you can pitch it.
Right, because, and we've had these pitch panel events before where a lot of writers come up and they start, and it's very natural, I've done it myself, to start going into backstories about the character or, why they are the way they are, this person used to do this, and you're really just wasting time. Yeah. And nobody really cares that much about the backstory even before they really even know what the story is that we're going to be listening to. But Diane's been so on point with segues. We'll talk about log lines, and Matt, I'm sure you've read thousands just because of the festival. So we'll just start with you. What makes for a great log line? Obviously, there's a difference between the pilot log line because you have to cover technically the whole series, the actual pilot, and then the first season, etc., and a feature. So we'll stay on that point of difference between TV and feature, but how do you approach a really great log line, and what makes for
I mean, it's got to be very succinct. Like if you could describe your script into one word, what would it be? And then expand upon that word for a very detailed sentence. Think about it that way. And also, does your logline get into the heart of the story, like you were saying about getting too much into the backstory? I mean, that's a verbal pitch, but in terms of like a logline, like I really want to know like what is this really about? Is it about redemption? Is it a love story? Is it about reluctant hero? Is it about family? I want to get that feeling. I want to read it and get a sense that this is a world that I want to get into, and it feels distinctive and unique. And yeah, it's pretty hard. Like you want to get a sense of it and really understand like who the characters could be, what the genre is, what the world is, and not have too many questions going into it, and just really want to feel like I have to read that script.
Loglines are tough, but it's a form of pitching. You have to be able to do it. So, what makes it a great logline?
Ironically, when I worked at Paramount Law for Jill's our company, our fax machine had the same cold line for Ryan Murphy's old office. So almost every day we would receive, 10 faxes a day that are like, "Dear Mr. Ryan Murphy, please read my log line." And there would be anything from like the haunted penny found in the pocket of Jane Doe to like ones that actually just stuck out. And it was like 1 in 20 of those would be like, "Oh man, maybe should we reach out to this person?" But it was just so, it's hard to say. Like either you resonated with it as an individual or you don't.
Oh, I'm not the person to ask. I'm absolutely terrible. I tell
So
a long, wandering story, and at some point, I'm going to get to what it's all about. So I'm not the one. But I do think that stories are about problems, and so if your log line could capture somebody who wants something they can't have in a very broadest sense, and the more that what they want seems impossible, then I feel like I'm leaning in. Like I'm like, ooh, how is that dog going to become president? I don't know.
Yeah, it's about making it as difficult as possible for the character to achieve something, whether they want to or not, whatever that situation is. Going into either your own pitches or hearing some of your own pitches, or not your own, but hearing pitches from other writers, maybe give some examples of a really great experience you had pitching. Why did it work out so well? Anyone can start. And Diane,
Ooh, I can tell you one.
do it. Yeah.
I went in with my director, and we didn't know we were going to pitch at all. We had no idea that we were going to meet with Ted Hope at Amazon. We just thought we were going to meet with Bree, who's wonderful, and we'd met with her before. And then Ted shows up, and I'm like, "Ted, my hero, hi!" And then we just it was totally improv, and there was no. If I had known about it, I would have like stressed about it and written stuff down and prepared it. But it ended up just being us telling personal stories.
So
And we kind of got around.
personal stories that had to do with the project.
Tangentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's,
Like the personal stories of why we were drawn to the material. Like really embarrassing stories.
yeah.
And that's how we pitched it.
And it turns into a conversation, and suddenly you get like this unconscious yes from the person listening to because they're enjoying what you're saying.
Yeah, and then he's telling us personal stories, and then Bree's telling personal stories, and then we're all just like sharing.
Yeah. By the way, you should buy this project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Really great experience.
I don't recommend that to anybody.
Well, I mean, I recommend having a meeting with Ted. Anybody else? Great experiences with pitches. Diana, do you ever remember hearing one that you loved and why?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of really great pitches, and sometimes people, jump out of their chair and act it out, and there's just an energy sometimes that just happens in the room when someone is pitching, because it's a hot pitch, and maybe they're just funny, they're just like a goofy person that you personally kind of just relate to, which is nothing you can teach or learn. It's just something that sometimes happens. And I've also had great pitches where the executives were reacting and giving me their ideas, and I would say, yes, exactly. Everything. Hilarious. I never even thought of that. I'm definitely incorporating that. And I just, it's not BS. It's just, again, that's an energy thing, right? You don't want to act like you're not interested. And because the fact that they're even suggesting something about my TV show means they're interested in it. This is not a negative. It's a huge positive. And so even on my own show, there was something that an executive pitched me the first season. And I kept saying, I'm going to use that. The kids are just still too young. And do you know, I did use it. 4 seasons later, he invited his wife and all of his children and said, that's my line. One line.
I love that, man. It seems like you're gonna add,
Yeah, so to add to what Diane was talking about in terms of energy, at AFF, I oversaw the annual pitch competition that happens at the conference each year. And for the life of me, I can't remember the specifics of people's pitches in the finale. And if you've ever been to AFF, you know it's at a bar. There's several rounds of pitching, and the final round is at a bar, and it's an actual official party for the festival. Tons of people are packed in there. There's a reason why it's in a bar, because if you're pitching, you need some liquid courage to be able to do that in front of people. It takes a lot of talent and courage.
everybody here will not have before they go out.
Darn. But we don't, right?
We will eventually.
But for the life of me, I can't remember the details of the pitch, but what I remember most is the energy, what they brought into it, and that it struck an emotional chord with them, that in the middle of their pitch, you could see their lip quivering, not just from nervousness, but it was such an emotional journey that they were having to relive, and you could tell it was a personal story that they just broke down in tears, and those are the moments that I remembered because it was a deeply personal story. And I've been at an event similar to this where I was listening to pitches, and there was a guy, we couldn't hear anything he was saying because he was crying in the beginning of his pitch. And so we all got up and gave him a hug and like, you can do this, you got a story. We were like coaching him just to get it out. And finally when he got out, it was this beautiful, poignant story, which again, I can't remember for the life of me, but it was just because you cared for this person and you wanted to see them do well.
There are so many famous stories about Mel Brooks. He was like one of the most famous pitchers in town just because he would. And there was a professor I had in college who said he was giving a pitch to a high level executive, and to this day, quote unquote, he hates Mel Brooks because he was in the middle of the pitch. Mel Brooks burst into the office and said, "This guy's not who you're supposed to be listening to." He literally pulled my professor up with his shirt and said, "Okay, you're going to leave now." And he just pushed him out the door, and then Mel Brooks jumped on the desk of the executive and started giving his own pitch. I don't suggest doing that, but at least you get a sense of Mel Brooks' personality. Great experiences pitching.
I would say someone who can come into the room and ultimately make you believe every single thing that they're saying. And like, why wouldn't we be wanting to spend these 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes of our time in our day and our busy schedules to hear this really important thing that no one's seen before? And if you come into the room with that kind of confidence, even if you don't know how your story's going to end, it doesn't matter. You could seriously present it and like be that convincing, and you will get everybody's attention, and it will turn into that conversation, and it will turn into this like energetic feeding of like, who knows, maybe in that meeting you're going to figure out what the end of your movie is, even though we would have never known that you didn't know when you came in,
Cortney brings up an interesting thing. There is something a little bit about a mindset, like a mindset shift, because you go into a pitch meeting and you're like, I want them to give me a job, like I want them to make my show happen. And there's something really kind of wonderful about going in and like seeing it as a very generous gift. Like I am giving you like 15 minutes away from all of the busy stuff that you have to do. I'm giving you this gift.
That's great, because yes, you're presenting an opportunity for this person, but it's really great to just be in that moment and go, okay, who is this person? What is he or she doing during their day? How often are they taking pitches? Sometimes you don't always know, but it's a really good point, because it is usually a nice little break. Okay, well, let's do it.
It's the fun part. You get to like, everybody who's in this industry is obsessed with storytelling. obsessed with media, obsessed with entertainment, or grew up loving it, like to have it something new and fresh, to feel like you get to be a part of that is indeed a gift for sure.
And the idea that at the end of the day we're all salespeople, it's true, but there's a really delicate balance there because you can't. And I kind of want to segue into these kind of pitch panel events and big conferences, et cetera, and how people can and should be acting within those types of networking / pitch events, because I've had far too many experiences where people come in and say, I need to sell my project today. What can, and there's a forcefulness. So what kind of advice can you give, at least in terms of just, it's confidence, you need to have the confidence, but it's so easy to see cockiness too easily. So best advice for approaching a little bit of, how do I find my voice, but also finding that confidence without going too over the top. It's very relative, obviously.
I think you gotta read the room. You gotta be aware enough to feel what's going on. You gotta find the one person in the room who's looking at you, who gets it, and make sure that that's who you're engaging with, and be like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? No, I'm kidding. But something along the lines of like, you find that person who you know and are aware enough to tell that they get what you're trying to do. At least that's what I think.
Also, I mean, when I myself have gone to these pitch fest type of things, I research the people that I am pitching to, and I pinpoint who I think would get my pitch, and I zero in on, those 2 or 3 people first, and I sign up to pitch to them first, and I get there early, and I get there fresh, and I try to be the first person that they listen to. And it's just very strategic, because if you're pitching something to someone who really doesn't even do that, like it's not going to go well for you, and that's going to affect your confidence going into the next thing and the next thing. So, do some research on who's listening to your pitch.
Matt, or either way, I just know that you have a lot of experience with those types of events. Horror stories, positive stories, what kind of advice would you give people?
Well, like Diane said, do your research and know who's, before you invest in buying a pass or badge to attend a pitch fest event, look and see who's going to be there listening to pitches. If you guys aren't on Studio System or Variety Insight or IMDb Pro, you should be looking up who those representatives are, because often you'll see the name and then the company, and it'll turn out it's just, a coordinator for the company or a junior manager agent. Because often they'll have somebody be there as a proxy for the company, but they're not going to be the ones who are going to be the ones to buy your material or to rep you. They're going to be the ones vetting the material to take it to the people higher up, which is not a bad thing, but you got to really know what you're getting into first. So just being fully informed.
Honestly, I'm surprised that you use the word cocky in association with writers. I mean, most writers I know are like, hit me again, hit me some more, I hate myself. Like, I'm so sorry I'm here, forgive me. And so, if you're cocky, I'm gonna say, especially if you're a lady, let it loose. Like, because we don't see that enough. Like, I feel like we're always apologizing for ourselves. So if that's your genuine self, rock it. Then maybe you show somebody, oh, that person can completely handle running their own show, which you need to be like a force to be able to steer that ship.
Okay.
If you're genuinely cocky, bring it.
So maybe the
bring it
word
up.
cocky wasn't the best choice. It's more of like we don't need to be used for our salesmen and trying to force the situation. Kind of this and that. I guess that's a different kind of cocky. But anything else to add on that subject?
Well, being a salesperson, I think every writer should really be thinking of themselves as the CEO of their company, the stories that they want to tell, because you're the one who's going to have. Your stories are your capital. It's your currency. It's the thing that you have to brand yourself. You have to figure out how you're going to sell yourself. Only you can figure out how best to do that. But that's how you should really, if you're a writer, you should really be thinking about it in that sense. Because then in that sense, it doesn't feel too slimy. Well, I don't know, a CEO, salesperson, whatever. It still can be slimy.
True.
But at least you're putting into perspective that I own this, and I have to be the one to take it through rather than being the salesperson who has got to meet a quota, you know?
Yeah, you have to be the most passionate person about the project because nobody else is going to be as passionate about it as you. On the topic of preparing pitches, before you go in, obviously research, knowing who you're going to be pitching to, but in terms of actually putting the pitch together, practicing in front of a mirror, etc., we'll kind of go the negative route for a second in terms of biggest mistakes that either you personally made that you remember making, oh, I shouldn't have done it that way, or advice in general in terms of putting that pitch together, literally writing it all out. Do you memorize it? Anything. We'll start with Cortney.
I think it's important to feel like you're not reading from a script. And I think it's very important to humanize it as much as possible. Even if you just have like a talking point that's like, okay, I know I gotta hit this word, I gotta hit that word, I gotta hit this. But like, I would suggest not reading off of a piece of paper and making it seem like, you believe this and know this so well that you could do it with your eyes closed or hanging upside down or whatever it is. Like, and if you're a total introvert writer and you aren't the person who can do that, like most of us, then find your creative cohort who gets it, who's charismatic, who can carry it for you.
You could also, if you do have notes, I had an actor friend who listened. I rehearsed in front of her before doing it, and she caught me on like I had it mostly memorized, but I'd like glance at the page every once in a while. She's like, just at the beginning, just say, "Hey, I have my notes here in case I miss anything. I might glance at them every once in a while."
Oh, that's great.
And then you just like launch into it, and then you're like, "Oh wait, where?" You could kind of like look a little bit, but not pretend that this note thing doesn't exist or anything like that. Like she's like, "I see your notes; they're right there. So just acknowledge them, and then you can move on." And you do the. At the top of the page, every time I read it out loud, I like marked a little thing, and I did like 5, and then I was like, okay, I'll do 10. You kind of, I'm more introverted, so I really am. Like this is draining the life out of me. I'm gonna go in fetal position over there in like an hour and a half. But you definitely read it out loud like 20 times, like bare minimum. And then you bring your notes in, and the hands are shaking. You kind of put it in there. But that was a little piece of advice that helped me a lot.
I would also say film yourself and watch yourself at home. I mean, how bad do you want to sell it? What do you mean? Like, it's awesome, and then you can like see where your face twitches or whatever is going on, or if your hands are shaking. I mean, that's how I did it. It helped me a lot. And it was very uncomfortable. I'm not going to say it was comfortable at all. I mean, that's really helped.
There's a huge level of self-awareness that you need in these pitch sessions, and so I would be terrified to do that too. But you're going to go do something that's terrifying. You might as well get the terror over with when you're just by yourself.
Totally.
Well, I also, I have a lot of friends who are also sitcom writers, and I may run it by 2 or 3 of them, invite them over, so they can point out to me, what's not clear or what's confusing in my pitch that I haven't even realized because I've gone over it so many times that I don't even see what isn't clear anymore. So, if you have someone like that you can run it by, I think that's really, really helpful.
I'm sorry. We're in Los Angeles, and they have so many of these improv classes.
That was what I was going to say. No, it is totally true. I have a lot of friends, 'cause in Austin, improv is also big there too, and so I have a lot of friends who are screenwriters and do improv. I can't do improv at all. I've tried taking a class, and that's why I can't be an actor. And be bad at a writer in terms of pitching as well. But it's that yes and philosophy in improv, because sometimes you have to be able to read the room and you've already written out and you've already rehearsed your pitch, and then you find yourself going in one direction, and you don't want to just stick to the script because it's too robotic. That all right, we're going to go here. All right, I'm adjusting and adapting, and I think improv teaches you that. So. Maybe not answering your question, but it's more of like a tip that taking improv classes.
Yeah, and if you couldn't be like hanging out with a bunch of 22-year-olds and act like a bear in it's so humiliating. Improv is so humiliating that if you get through that, then going into an executive office and pitching your awesome series is like nothing.
It's like what you were saying, Dan, in terms of the yes and approach.
Oh, yeah, I was trained in Chicago at the Improv Olympic.
But I mean, imagine if you
Oh,
had
yeah.
this great pitch going with an executive, and the executive's kind of into it, and you know, she offers up this little piece of, you know, maybe we could do this, and you kind of go, oh, you know, well, you just killed the pitch, of course. You're like, oh, great, yeah, we could go this way. Yeah, yes, totally, yeah. All right, I think the last thing, we have maybe 15 minutes, but I do want to talk about voice, because I think voice is, I mean, we started off with that, you know, in terms of talking about the purpose of the pitch. I just kind of want to get your take on what you think voice is, because we all have some form of a different definition. And I think it's important for everybody to just kind of have an understanding. Anyone can start. What do you think voice is?
I think it's how I was thinking about this question. I think it's how you tell your story. Everybody in this, there's 50 people in this room, and if I said, tell a story about a married couple who goes on vacation and ends in divorce, you're all going to tell it different. And the way that you tell it is your voice. And so I think the best way to hone your voice, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, and it feels like it's synonymous with how well you know yourself, which is like maddening. It's like totally way too personal, and like this isn't the world for therapy, you know. But voices, I feel it's like, you know how you tell a story by knowing very well what you like and why you like it. And so you talk about education at the beginning being the most important. Study scripts of the movies that you like. Figure out, study films. Like break down a scene. Get a film nerd and just like break down a scene and just be like, oh my God, they did that. And then and understand so much why you love the things that you love, because that's going to inform how you tell your story.
Right. And write log lines and pitch movies that you've watched and seen. That's part of the study. So that you can get a sense of how to, you know, how would I pitch this movie? Whether it's literally what you see on screen or your version of it. I always kind of use this example of, if Judd Apatow was asked to make Nightmare on Elm Street, you know what kind of Nightmare on Elm Street that's going to be. It's because he has an understanding of the voices. But Diane, it seemed like you were going to add to the voice.
I also seriously studied many pilots, like the Seinfeld pilot, the Roseanne pilot, the Cheers pilot, and the Married with Children pilot, as well as Everybody Loves Raymond. And I sometimes go back and revisit them because they all had such longevity. And what was it? And what are the similarities between these shows that seem to be dissimilar? But yet they stayed on, you know, for 11 seasons or something. You know, why did these shows resonate with this audience for so long?
Voice really comes down to specificity, because I think that, like, the textures of the story, like if you took, you felt like the writer took a microscope on this world, and they're the only ones who have that lens into that world, and they're the only ones that, like, hey, come here, look through this lens with me as well. You want to get the feel in the pitch, on the page, whatever, that the writer is the only one who has that particular POV. And we say, you know, as humans, we tell the same stories over and over and over again, but as individuals, we have our own take on it. So what is your take on it? What is your lens? And honestly, only you can figure out what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liz Feldman's show, Dead to Me, is such a great example of voice, because it is this extremely sad, depressing, difficult situation. If you haven't watched it yet, you should. And yet it's really funny, and they make fun of some of these situations that are really difficult to experience. I don't want to cut you off, keep going.
I was just going to say, voice is very attached to writing what you know, and not writing what you don't know. And like, I'm not going to be able to write something about some corporate structure of like 9-to-5 life. Like, I don't know that. But like, give me commentary on queer community of East LA. Like, I can go on for days and days. Like, so I think it's so important to realize where you're comfortable within your knowledge and with your awareness, and making sure that the content you also want to make is attached to that. And then it's going to be authentic, and then it's going to feel easy. And then when someone asks you a question about it, you're going to be like, oh no, I get this, I know. Because it's your world.
Yeah. Great. Did you want to add that?
The only thing I wanted to add is you can also write what you emotionally know. It's I taught screenwriting at NYU a little bit, and it was just a sea of annoying roommate stories. That's all it was. Everybody had the worst roommate ever. So it's all annoying roommate stories, and I was yeah, I know you've heard write what you know, but write what you emotionally know as well, so you can transpose those feelings of your really irritating roommate and just maybe plop it in a different world.
Right, and you're the person to tell this story, and the story itself has probably been heard before. So what can I do with my own perspective, my own take on this story to then elevate the uniqueness? Because I think that to me is a good example. The twist in there is obviously something we haven't quite seen before. But the situation of a widow grieving over her dead husband, she's just now a single mom, and we've seen that stuff before, but it's a whole new take on it. I think we have time for maybe one or two questions.
What are you hoping to get out of being here tonight? What's most important to you?
For whatever reason at AFF, I became this shepherd for writers that I feel like I want to take all these introverted writers and all right, let's get over our introvertedness together. And maybe that's why I've decided to be a manager, so that we can sort of work this out together.
It's true.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. How many people in this room are not where they want to be professionally? So, me too. We're all here together trying to be the worst job in the world, which is a writer. It's sucky. It's super sucky. And so it sometimes it helps to be in equally miserable company.
Share in the misery, I guess. Diane.
Well, we live in our head. We're a little odd. We have characters who live in our head and talk to us, and then we write it down. And so, for me, it's really important to not just be, in my head, and to be able to share what's in my head with people who maybe, could get something out of it is also very rewarding for me.
Well, I think it's a good way to end it. It was a very good question. I think what we can do is get into the pitches now, but a huge round of applause for everybody.